Good morning everyone and welcome to our electrical contractor webinar. Thanks for joining us for another Electricity Safety Week event. I'm Chris Bombolis from the Office of Industrial Relations and I'm your MC for this morning's event. Can I firstly acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet and elders past, present and emerging. We're celebrating Electricity Safety Week this week with a range of free events and prizes. So once again, thanks for joining us today and you could be a winner. Throughout today's session, there's an opportunity to ask our speakers any questions you like. Just type them into the live Q&A box on the right of your screen and we'll get to them during the panel session, which is happening a little later on. And get this, just by typing your question, you'll go into the draw to win one of 3 $100 trade equipment gift vouchers. That's an easy competition with some great odds and hope you can join in for that one. If you have any technical problems during our session, then please make sure the sound is turned off on your computer, refresh your browser, and if that doesn't work, contact us via the Q&A chat box. Today is Are You OK Day, which is all about inspiring and empowering people to meaningfully connect with those in their world and to lend support when they are struggling with life. On that note, let's welcome in Paul Spinks, an advanced care paramedic and trauma counsellor, to officially kickstart today's event. Paul has worked in employment services and in a rehab as a national training manager conducting self-development courses. This presentation discusses suicide, which some people might find disturbing. If you or someone you know is struggling, we will have some slides up shortly where you can get help and support. Welcome in, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, and g'day all. Look, I'm going to take you on a fairly wild journey on the next half an hour or so, or what it means to keep well. So 16 years in the ambulance service as a trauma counsellor. I've learned a lot and seen a lot. I want to share some of that with you today. Can I just begin to tell you that I'm currently working out in the far remote Cape York region of Australia in a small station with a catchment area of about 300 kilometres. It certainly has had its challenges. I went out on a job. I was dispatched there a couple of weeks ago, 150 kilometres away, going down a dirt road. I was told just to keep right on this dirt road and drive for a couple of hours. As I continued driving, I get to an intersection and I thought, well, that wasn't the plan. I didn't know whether to turn right or go straight ahead. Fortunately, I went straight ahead, which was the right way. I drove for about another hour or so. I started getting concerned. It was hot, it was dry. What happens if I break down? All of a sudden I lost my GPS. Didn't know where I was going in the middle of some pretty hard country out there. I thought about my water bottle. I thought, oh my God, what happens if I break down? I'm going to run out of water here. A bit further on, there were some fires. I thought, oh, what happens if I get surrounded by fire? It's amazing that anxiety cascade, isn't it, as it just builds up and up and up. Fortunately, about another hour on the drive, I came across a little ranger's tent. An Indigenous worker came out and greeted me, and he took me the last 10 or 15 minutes to the particular patient I had to go to. So it had a nice ending, but some pretty interesting challenges. One of the challenges I had out there was this. It was a particular nasty accident. It was a father and his son on a motorbike, and they were heading out to just having some fun, having an adventure with his lad, and they were going around this sweeping left-hand corner. And when they did, the young bloke gave it a bit of a squirt, and he went out onto the wrong side of the road, and a truck was coming the other way and collected him and put him straight under the truck. He got caught up under the truck. He was killed instantly. And the dad was on scene, so pretty horrific stuff. Dad turned around and found his young bloke caught under the truck. Ambulance rocks up on scene, and it's a pretty tragic day. Probably one of the worst accidents I've ever been to, but a pretty profound awakening, a lot of wake-up calls on that particular job. But I spent about an hour and a half on scene with the dad, just trying to counsel him and work through this particular tragedy. Towards the end of the accident, I was getting ready to go, and I embraced the dad. We had a bit of a cry together. I have a son about the same age. And he said to me, he said, he had his hair dyed green yesterday. And he said he had this monstrous tattoo put down his arm. He said, I got up up him about his tattoo. I got up him about his green hair. And he just shook his head. In other words, it meant nothing. In death, it meant absolutely nothing. But it's interesting the things we worry about, isn't it? You know, green hair, tattoos, is somebody gay, you know, all the COVID discussion that stresses us and worries us so much. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? What are we really worried about? What should we be really worried about? COVID-19 deserves a mention these days, and this is from an ambulance response, but I got called to one of the COVID hotels and a young bloke was threatening to commit suicide, 12 days in lockdown in a tiny room in one of the hotels. I rocked up there, walked upstairs, and when I got upstairs, the police were out the front and they gave me a brief. I walked inside and there the balcony doors were wide open. So I had a bit of a chat to this young bloke. I decided he wasn't too much of a threat. Walked out and said to the police, look, I said, I think he can stay as long as we put him down into a safe room. And the police said to me, yeah, no problems at all. So I went downstairs, I was doing my paperwork and the sergeant came up to me and said, mate, just to let you know, he said, I put the young bloke downstairs in a safe room. I said, terrific. I said, what room did you put him in? He said, the 4th floor. I said, the 4th floor. I said, do you think he could still jump out of the 4th floor and harm himself? And he said, yeah, he probably could. I said, well, why don't you stick him in the 1st floor? And he said, yeah. He said, the problem with the 1st floor, he said, they're all locked balconies on the 1st floor. And I said, and your point is? And he said, well, he said, we're not allowed to, he said, the regulations forbid us to put people into a locked room. He said, I'd need a High Court judge to allow us to put him into a locked room. So I said, okay. So they left him on the 4th floor. And I thought, wow, isn't it amazing? All the rules and regulation we have to do, and here we are in a police environment, and this young bloke couldn't be put safely into a locked room. I want to tell you about another nasty job I did, which involved this particular apartment building. I got called to a 35-year-old girl that was threatening self-harm or threatening to commit suicide. When I walked in there, I saw her on about the 4th floor of this particular apartment building. She was sitting there, and I walked in there and I gave her a bit of a wave, and I ran up the stairs to go and have a chat to her. It was about 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. I was going home at 5, so I thought if I could just get her down to see the psychologist down at Robina Hospital, that was the plan. But when I got up there, she'd crossed over the balcony and she was just hanging onto the side of the balcony in this little lip of concrete. And I thought, oh my God, don't do this to me on Christmas Eve. And so I had a bit of a chat to her for about 5 minutes or so, and I could see her pupils were fully dilated. She'd entered what I call the black hole. She couldn't see her family, she couldn't see her friends anymore. She just wanted to end the pain. So I knew what I was doing wasn't going to help too much. So I ran downstairs and I got underneath her and I'm talking to her from underneath. I thought, hopefully she won't jump in this position. Female partner walks in. She runs up the stairs and she tries some female negotiating power. And when she does, she's met with the same issue. She enters the black hole. And right about this time, a bystander is about to go shopping. Talk about the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time, however you view life. She walks out and she sees the commotion. So she decided to get involved and we kind of all recruited her. And so both the girls started to approach the patient. I was underneath her. We knew we had to do something because she was getting more and more loose on the balcony and she was about to jump. So the right moment the command was given to grab her. And when they went to grab her, the girl jumped from the balcony, but my partner managed to grab her foot and the bystander managed to grab her hand. Bystander couldn't hang on for her too long, so she let go of her hand. She was now upside down with one leg with my partner hanging onto her on the balcony. She couldn't hang on to her either and she eventually let her go. And she came down about a metre from me from the balcony, and the rest is history. Pretty horrific scene. Her brother rocks up on scene. Not a great place for a brother to rock up on scene, but he's really composed. He knew his sister was in trouble. I said, mate, how did it get to this? He said, God, mate, she was doing all right 4 or 5 years ago, but he said her husband had walked out on her and she wasn't doing too well. She went to see a psychologist. The psychologist referred her to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist put her on lithium, Valium, antidepressants, antipsychotics, you name it. She was on a suite of medications. I thought, oh my God, how did this girl even get through the day as psychiatry start to try and intervene with every single neuron inside of our head? But so when was your last normal? How do we get ourselves into these positions? If I'm not talking about you today, I'm most certainly talking about one of your family members. When I sit round the dinner table with my kids of a night, when I work with my ambulance colleagues, or when I'm doing presentations, I walk around with this acronym called HELP. And I want to share it with you because it saved a lot of lives. HELP stands for any signs of hopelessness or helplessness. If I'm sitting around the table and I notice that, I just hover over my kids and I dig a bit deeper. I never let these things go. And then look for any signs of emotional behaviour or emotional distress. Are they crying more than normal? Are they angry more than normal? And I hover over it and I dig a little bit deeper and ask lots of questions. And then I look for any signs of loss of appetite, loss of connection, loss of friends. That's a big one. And if I notice anything like that, I just hover over it and dig a bit deeper. And then look for any physical changes. Is there their clothes ragged, or their hair ragged, or whatever the case may be, and think, just hover over it and dig a bit deeper. I can't tell you how many lives I've saved or intervened just by using that help. I would challenge you to do the same. So have we got our heads in the sand when it comes to all things mental health? There's so much discussion on mental health. Every time you turn the television on, the radio, and there's something about mental health. But how well do we really do mental health? How well do you do it at home? How well do you invest in this thing called mental health? Like, who's had the suicide conversation with the kids? Pretty tough question, isn't it? I had the suicide conversation with my young bloke when he was about 16 years of age. He said, "You know what, Dad?" He said, "I have been thinking about harming myself." I went, "Really?" Now, in the ambulance, we have a criteria. You can have the thoughts. Everyone can have the thoughts. But the next question takes a quantum leap to about an 80% probability. Do you know how and do you know where? So I asked my young bloke, "Do you know how and do you know where?" To which he replies, "Yeah, Dad, I know exactly how and I know exactly where." Okay, let's get on to this. So we get him down the dock, we get him referred to a psychologist. I sacked the first psychologist because they were useless. Be prepared to sack your psychologist and hunt for a good one. And about 2 or 3 later, I found a terrific one, and we stayed in that place. We worked on him for the next 12 months or 2 years. And today he's doing really well. All the advice has been given along the way. Had we not had the conversation, had I not deepened the conversation, I had not used tools like HELP, he may not be with us today. I just want to show you this little video. People that become mentally ill or suicidal, it starts with obviously little cracks, and they become bigger cracks if left unattended. What do you think right now in your life is some cracks, some little cracks that could just be dangerous?
Very insecure.
I'm scared.
Insecurity. Why are we so insecure?
Just because there's like not fitting into like a certain fit category or whatever. Like I don't know.
And I feel also judged by my parents. I feel like they're not proud of me. I don't look. I'm not pretty enough. I just feel like I've let them down with who I am.
People that become mentally ill or suicidal, it starts with obviously. If that doesn't put a shiver down your spine for anybody that's got a daughter, I tell you what, it's listen to that conversation, not pretty enough, and all the things that kids fear at this stage. But that video is particularly personal to me because that's my daughter. And we just went down the park to have a conversation on marijuana, actually. We grabbed 3 of her friends. That video ran for about half an hour. And we're having lots of laughs and lots of funs, and that was the back end, and started noticing little cracks. What did I do? Help, hover over it and dug a little bit deeper. And then sort of, wow, bang, Dad gets punched in the face. And there it is, right in my family. I invest in mental health, got a good relationship, great relationship with my daughter, but just hovering below the surface are some of these things. How well do we do mental health? How well do we invest in our family? Do you go home overnight and get on social media and start on Facebook and start investing in somebody else's life when these little time bombs and these little cracks are sort of could be ticking away at your house? Needs some thought, doesn't it? I want to, people do all kinds of things to service their mental health, and I just want to run through a couple of them, but this is a big one. But in the year of 2016 or so, a large number of Australians walked into our doctors and said, "Doctor, I'm agitated, doctor, I can't sleep." And the doctors prescribed us an alarming amount of mind-altering medication just get through the day. Around the year of 2016 or 17, it was about 30 million prescriptions. So we threw a stack of money at it, we expanded mental health services, and did it go up or did it go down? It went up. It was about 40 million prescriptions. And now the current rate of prescriptions for antidepressants around 50 million tablets. Is that how we do? Is that how we do mental health these days? Do we just erode our mental health, have no checks or along the way, and find ourselves all of a sudden having some kind of episode, walk into the doctor's surgery and say, "Doctor, I'm agitated, doctor, I can't sleep." And the doctor, in their wisdom, might hand us a little packet of pills and out we go, where we treat the symptom, but we never treat the cause. Needs a lot more thought than that, doesn't it? The next big one I'd say to you is breathe. God, we've become a nation of shallow breathers. We used to breathe about 20 years ago at 7 or 8 breaths a minute. Now we're breathing at something like 13, 14, 15, 20, 25 breaths a minute. And something extraordinary happens when we start to shallow breathe because we blow off too much carbon dioxide. When we blow off too much carbon dioxide, our arteries constrict. It snaps our little arteries, our major arteries snap shut to the big muscles in our back and we get tight in our back. It snaps the muscles shut into our coronary artery, hence the correlation between stress and heart attack. It snaps the carotid artery shut, hence the correlation between stroke and stress. It increases the stress hormones of adrenaline and cortisol and reduces down the production of the good fuel of serotonin and dopamine. Wow, just all in the power of the breath. Imagine if we could bring it back, eh? Imagine if we could invest in this thing called mental health. You know what? I'll just do all the organic things first. I'll start breathing again at 7 or 8 breaths a minute. I'll get on a YouTube clip or overnight, or I'll just lie on the floor and I'll do a 1-minute guided exercise of meditation. Just learn how to breathe again. Wow, we can make profound changes. One respiratory physiologist said that 98% of blood pressure can be controlled just in the power of the breath. Worth investing in. But I'm gathering you won't go home tonight and do that, will you? You won't go home and probably do that 5 or 10 minutes that we've got to do every day and invest in mental health. So I'm going to make it really easy. Started this thing called the 2-second rule. In the ambulance service, it works a treat because when I go off to a nasty job or a cardiac arrest, my adrenaline and cortisol goes through the roof. I roll out of those doors. I'm looking at drugs and protocols and things like that. I rock up to somebody's house. I know over that fence somebody's in cardiac arrest and there's a family there. God, if I get out of the car at that time, I'm no good to anybody. So I've just adopted the 2-second rule. It's the 2 seconds like a micromanagement meditation rule. In through the nose. Out through, okay, you've got this, Paul. And I get out calm, cool and collected and deliver the job. So successful it's been the ambulance service. I use it on the kids. Kids give me a hard time at home. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, kids, let's just do this. Somebody gives me the finger. I nearly jam up the backside of somebody's car and they wave at me stupid or give me a hard time. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Doesn't work all the time, but I've got to say it works a lot of the time. There's other ways to find me. There's a QR code here, and I'll have to check with our people that are operating today just to further get your QR code to you. But this will, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a summary video of my presentation today. You'll get my personal emails, my personal details. If you have any questions, please write to me. I love it when people write to me, and I'll always get back to you. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you, Paul. As always, your presentation is revealing. There's no sugarcoating anything, including poop food. I'll rephrase what you said. And some great advice. And Paul, we really appreciate you taking time. I thought I was a better me today, but having listened to you, there's certainly improvement that we can all make, whether it's mental or physical. So thank you again. In light of this being Are You OK Day, I encourage you to use these 4 steps to start a conversation with your friends, family and colleagues. And as Paul said, sometimes those conversations are confronting and they are not easy. So it could change your life if you begin with these simple 4 suggestions. Ask, are you okay? Listen, encourage action, check in. And we love an acronym here in the government, so that turns out to be ALEC. So ask, are you okay? Listen, encourage action, and check in. And we might change slides now, and on your screen you'll see some very important contact numbers that you can reach out to if you or someone you know, and that could be a work colleague, that could be a loved one, anyone in your life that may be going through a tough time. You can see some of the organisations there, some great help given by these guys, Mates in Construction, Men's Line Australia, Lifeline, Beyond Blue, the Black Dog Institute, Suicide Callback Service, and the Sane Australia and Open Minds. So again, all those contact details are there, and if you feel the need or you think someone needs some help, then please use those numbers and contact details. Let's move on to our next speaker coming up very, very shortly, but Paul's going to join us for our panel session later on. And if you do have any questions for Paul or any other member of our panel, we do have 3 $100 trade equipment vouchers to give away. It's pretty easy. All you need to do is type your name and question in the Q&A box to the left of your screen. Remember that for every question you ask, that's 1 entry into the draw. So it might be good that if you ask multiple questions and we can get to them, you've got multiple chances of winning those trade vouchers. I'd now like to welcome Donna Heeland. She is the Executive Director of the Electrical Safety Office to give us an update about ESO matters. Donna, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Wow, what a tough act to follow with going straight behind Paul. Sadly, we'll change tack a little bit more, and I thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy work and home lives to join us today as part of Electricity Safety Week. Electrical safety, I often say, is not sexy, but as the electrical contractors, QTPs and QBPs, and yes, we do like a good acronym, thanks Bomber, you play a critical role in ensuring the professionalism, the competency, the well-being, health and safety of Queensland's electrical industry. On any given day, we have around 60,000 licensed electrical workers, 12,000 contractors and almost 9,000 apprentices. And while every single one of them should be going home safely every day, sadly this doesn't always happen. Last year there were 22 serious electrical incidents in Queensland, and tragically 3 of them were fatal. That's 3 people that no longer have their dad, their son, their partner, their workmate, their coach or their friend. I know you will all join me in saying that this number should be 0. 0 fatalities and zero serious electrical incidents. For those doing the wrong thing, we will not shy away from using all available enforcement tools with the regulator. We've been focusing, as you probably know, on unlicensed electrical contracting and unlicensed electrical work. Not only is it illegal, it is unsafe and dangerous. So far in the last 12 months, we've issued almost $100,000 worth of on-the-spot fines and progressed with a number of matters before the courts through the independent Work Health and Safety Prosecutor. Many of you know that our electrical safety laws were established in 2002, almost 20 years ago, which then provided high standards of safety for the industry. But new and emerging technologies have led to significant changes for the electricity generation, storage and supply, which is why the Electrical Safety Act is currently under independent review to ensure it remains effective, relevant and future-proofed. I'm really proud to lead the electrical safety team, and this year has seen a number of firsts. The first industrial manslaughter charge has been laid by the Office of the Work Health and Safety Prosecutor under the Electrical Safety Act after a tragic fatality. We've had the successful application of 3 magistrate court injunctions for failures to comply with improvement notices, and we've issued the first immediate licence suspension for unsafe electrical work. These have never been done before in Queensland. And while we're on the topic of enforcement action, the Independent Prosecutor's Office has secured almost $440,000 of fines for breaches of the Electrical Safety Act in the past 12 months. We're also focusing on expanding our reach as the regulator to ensure we have visibility in the Queensland community, not just in the southeast Queensland corner, but across all of our great state. We've written to 37,000 landlords about their duties under the legislation, and if you're around tomorrow or have people that are a landlord or work in the real estate industry, I urge you to encourage them to join us tomorrow for our final electricity safety webinar for landlords and real estates. We've reached almost 300,000 people with the Don't DIY campaign, and that's only since June this year. We've had 101,000 people visit the Electrical Safety Community webpage, again a new initiative of the Office of Industrial Relations, which only came live in October of last year. We've conducted 65 electrical equipment examinations to make sure the electrical equipment you bring into your home is safe for you and your family. And we've had almost 43,000 views of the electrical contracting self-audit tool. And finally, while I'm on the topic of numbers, some months ago we started the eSafe Apprentice Edition with over 8,000 subscribers. If you have apprentices in this industry, I urge you to encourage them to sign up to this eSafe Edition, which will keep them up to date, that are especially targeted to them, their wellbeing and their safety. As the Executive Director for the Electrical Safety Office, there are a number of emerging trends that are of significant concern, and we have committed this year to a number of key priority areas. These include the hazard of working around energised parts and the risk of injuries or death as a result of an arc flash, contact with overhead lines, mutual failures, clearance from ground and structures for overhead lines, and compliance with installation safety standards and compliance with the sale of safe electrical equipment. But truly, it is an amazing and exciting time to be in this industry. We have the emergence of renewable technologies that we didn't see 5, 10, 15 years ago. PV solar and wind farms, and the development of technologies around batteries, battery storage, independently owned small-scale generation and storage of power, the emerging use of hydrogen, electric vehicles, and in some areas they're working on the development of electric commuter aeroplanes. Who would have thought just 118 years since the Wright brothers first took flight, we would be looking at flying in an aeroplane completely powered by batteries? The pace of this technology is impressive, but with all change comes challenge, and one of them is for the regulator and the industry to ensure we are able to keep up to date with what's happening and to keep on top of these emerging technologies to make sure we're safe. Thank you again for joining us today. Each and every day your industry helps Queenslanders keep the lights on, powers our hospitals, our schools and our workplaces. And I share with you the same message that I have said many times this week for Electricity Safety Week. If you take one thing away, it is that the professionalism, competence, safety and well-being of this industry is not about each of us individually, but about every one of us working together. Work safe, home safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna, and I can't believe that it's 118 years since Wilbur and Orville Wright took flight for the very first time. Yeah, time gets away from us. Again, Donna will be part of our panel very, very shortly, and I would encourage you to ask our panel members questions. We've got 3 $100 trade equipment vouchers to give away. It's pretty easy. All you need to do is type your name and question in the Q&A box to the left of your screen. Let's move into another area, and it's time to welcome in Noel Cosgrove, and he is the General Manager of CV Services Group. Noel will discuss what he's learnt when he faced with the Electrical Licensing Committee after an arc flash injured one of their electrical workers. Noel has been with CV for over 15 years and has 35 years of industry experience. He is responsible for the effective operation of the whole electrical construction division, including the delivery of revenues of over $45 million. Quite a budget there, Noel. And leading a team of 160 people, and that's a team as well, across 4 locations. Welcome, Noel. Looking forward to your talk.
So good morning, everybody. Today I just want to talk about fronting the Electrical Licensing Committee. Look, particularly my experience and what I've learnt through that. I'll just recap on that. I'm the General Manager of CV Services, the Electrical Construction Division. I've been with the company about 15 years now. I've seen us significantly grow as a business. We have close to 170 people now because we've got a lot of work on, and 135 of them are in the field. We do and work across a lot of sites, residential, commercial and industrial. nearly all of them being in Queensland, and staying on top of our safety and compliance is a challenge. I believe we do it well. I believe we have good systems in place. We have a great team of people from our apprentices all the way up to the managers. And we have just a good safety management compliance system. However, we do get incidents. And today, I want to speak about particularly one of them incidents. So we've been in front of the committee twice, once in 2018 from an electrical shock incident. It resulted in us enrolling in the LEAD programme, which, to be honest, brought real good benefits to our safety culture in the company. But the second incident in 2019 is the one I really want to talk about. This was an incident which was an arc flash incident. We had a worker who was installing a CT meter on a switchboard. He missed a step in the process. When he energised that switch, the meter faulted, and I think you may be able to see from the picture that his hand was above the meter as he energised the switch, and the arc flash caused a significant burn to his hand. Look, that was pretty traumatic for him. It was pretty traumatic for us as a business. You know, we really challenged ourselves after this incident and really looked into our systems a lot more. The ESO conducted an investigation into the incident, but we also conducted our own internal investigation as well. We wanted to see if there was a step that we could have done that would have stopped this incident happening. And to be honest, after the investigation, we believe we fundamentally didn't do anything wrong, but we found out that if we would have implemented another process and stopped the switching of that switch when it happened, that we would have resolved this incident. So when we fronted the ELC in 2009, we explained to them how the incident happened, and we explained what we'd done in the investigation and what procedure we put in place. And generally what it was is that we will not allow anyone in our business to switch a switch in excess of 250 amps where we believe there's a high fault current. We have a specific stock process. It has to be peer reviewed, it has to be signed off by a manager, and there's a number of steps they have to take. I will say we've had that in place about 2 years now, and I know in at least one occasion that has stopped an issue. So when we presented that to the committee, they looked at it and no disciplinary action was taken. So of them two incidents, I just want to talk a little bit about the positive and negatives and what we saw from it. So look, standing in front of the committee makes you accountable. There is no doubt about it. I believe there's a lack of accountability in our industry. Really standing up there and explaining your systems and explaining what you do does make you accountable. We have 170 people. If we get restrictions on our licence, it affects the employment of 170 of our people. So we can't take that chance. And for me, that's our individual accountability. But I think as a business, we need far more accountability. It was good to see yesterday in the safety summit that the lead was that we're going to bring in a more compulsory continuing professional development. And I can't wait for that to happen. I think, to be honest, it's something that we missed and it's long overdue. I still have my own views on the way I do that, but we'll wait and see what comes out. Also, I think the ELC is not there to punish you. It helps you. It helped us. It put us on the LEAD programme. That brought significant safety culture change to our business. And to be honest, we're still working on that programme now, and I believe there is more courses coming up shortly for some of our newer supervisors. The negatives. There's a feel, and again, this isn't just me, I've spoke to other contractors, but there's a feel that if you've not got everything right, you get hammered for it. If the I's are not dotted, your T's are not crossed, something's not signed off correctly, you will get hammered. There's no doubt about it. And particularly for us as a business that puts so much work into our compliance and safety and our safety culture and trying to do the right thing, we feel that's unfair. We also feel that if a worker makes a mistake, it's still the company's problem. You know, we do a lot of work with our guys and skills assessments on compliance observations, and we give them direction on how to do the task. And sometimes They come into work and they make a mistake, and we still feel that's our problem. And look, I still have an issue with self-reporting. I don't think self-reporting works. I think someone said to me once that it's like driving down the street in your car and speeding, and then realising you're speeding and going to the police station to tell them you're speeding and accept your fine. It just doesn't work. I honestly believe if the ESO wants to look at that, we need to do something different in our industry. So, look, that's my views on fronting the Commission. I do think the ELC gives us that accountability. I do think we need something better in it. I want to thank you for listening to my side of it. If you do have any questions, please just put them in the chat, and I'll endeavour to answer them afterwards. So thank you again. Cheers.
Thanks to Noel, and as he mentioned, if you do have questions for him or any of our panel members, use the chat box. We've got those trade equipment vouchers going, and it's really easy. Type your name, your question, and we'll get to as many as we can during the chat a little later on. Time now to welcome in Michael Gibson, Director of Field Services from the ESO. He's going to talk about arc flash. Michael's had 35 years of experience in the electrical industry and 20 years at the ESO. His role is to lead the delivery of inspection and enforcement strategies to enforce and monitor compliance of duty holders with electrical safety legislation. And today it's all about arc flashes. Michael.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody, and I'd like to thank Noel for doing your presentation, Noel, and sharing that experience. I've only got a short amount of time, so I really want to hit a couple of key marks and key appointments around this arc flash management. The critical part of it is about the understanding that working on or near energised parts is the hazard, and everything else associated with that is the risk. So we really want you to start thinking about what is your undertakings, what is your business doing, what equipment and what size is the equipment that your industry or you're working in, whether you're doing commercial, industrial, and are your workers required to access equipment with really high fault current, testing and fault finding, the type of activities you're doing where you are working on or near these parts is where you need to rethink your safety process around how we're going to manage this risk. Working on or near, and it's a constant message that we're going to have, is the same risks and will require the same controls. So whether you're doing live work or what we used to call energised work, or whether you're purely just working near live exposed parts, same risks, same controls. So what do we got there? Electrical work. Because I can't even read it. Okay. Our main, I've already said that, right. The processes are in place. Now, working on or near energised parts. I should have brought my glasses. Sorry. Sorry? Oh, goodness. Am I still on the camera somewhere? Yeah. Sorry about that. Back on track, right. Now, we know that working on or near live parts is the activity we're talking about. We can't always follow that message where we always talk about working de-energised. That's our constant message to everybody, and we'll never drop that message. Working de-energised as much as you can is the priority. But in our industry and the work we do as electricians, there's a lot of activities that we can't do de-energised. We know what they are. We often work de-energised. We work to prove an isolation point. We do testing and fault find often on live equipment, and we do actions in regard to racking out circuit breakers and switching and isolating equipment. So we just want to talk about what actually an arc flash or an arc fault is. Often it is the breakdown or compromise of insulation through equipment damage and contamination. It's a work practice, and I want to go back to that. It can be a failure during the switching of a device, and often it's caused by poor maintenance and older equipment. So you're getting hot contacts, loose joints that are going to get hot, and you're going to get a runaway current, and it's going to fail. So the biggest one we want to talk about is the work practice. It's the interface between your worker and working on that energised part. Got it. Over the last 12 months, we've had 10 arc flash injuries that we've been investigating. A lot of those injuries and a lot of the outcomes of those investigations have identified that the workers and the workers' activities has been associated with that incident. So it's about a failure in a system, it's a failure in a process, and a couple of other slides ahead we'll look at some of those circumstances that are causing this failure. Arc flash hazard management it's the priority up front to understand what is the hazard. So if I think about the hazard, what do I need to put in place? So I'm looking at identifying the assets that I'm expecting my workers to work on. And they could be the switchboards. If I'm a maintenance company, the switchboards that I'm working on. If I do a lot of domestic work, if I do a lot of industrial and large-scale commercial construction, that type of thing. Then I talk about this quantifying the hazard and calculating the arc flash incident energy. That is a very complex process, but it's really basic. The bigger the equipment you're working on, the greater the potential energy is going to be there, and the greater risk for you and your workers and harm if something goes wrong. So we want you to assess that risk, and we want you to develop those risk treatments. Everyone knows our risk assessment process and the hierarchy of controls. We start at elimination, we go right down to PPE, and that's the same with arc flash risk management. Wherever we can, we'll always, the ESO will always recommend de-energising equipment, but you need to work out what are those controls and where your hierarchy of controls can fit with the work you do. It's not always possible to work de-energised. We've always spoken about testing and fault finding, so that's not always possible. It's not always possible for you to substitute the equipment you're going to be working on. It's there. You've walked into a business, so you've got to work on that equipment. You can use barriers, you can use other controls, and you can start putting safe systems of work together. It's really, really important. We always expect PPE, and the PPE's got to be suitable for the environment you're working in. And the PPE will be affected by the level of arc flash risk. But you've got to remember that it's only there to reduce your injury to a curable level. It's not there to save your life. It's really critical. It's a very important factor. Okay. This is one of the critical areas that we've probably identified in some of the investigations we've undertaken. It's the human factors that are affecting good process and procedures. It's the lack of training. It's the errors or mistakes occurring. It's complacency, and we've spoken about it today, whether it is mental health or distraction issues. All your workers need to understand that sometimes they're going to have to step back. They're going to have to walk away from a task because it's just going to be too risky and you're going to be too distracted to do it properly. The last thing we want to talk about is the actual legislation. So I think it's really important for people to understand working on energised equipment is prohibited, except for a very defined set of circumstances. So don't forget, it's prohibited. It's against the law. Those circumstances described in Section 18 of the regulations. If you can't meet those circumstances and you can't put in place your decent risk assessment, your persons are competent, you've got safe systems of work, then you are not meeting legislative requirements and you do risk prosecution. The Electrical Safety Act and regulations calls up quality codes of practice. There's some really good standards out there about safe working on low voltage electrical installations. We highly recommend that people access those documents. The last point is that working on or near live parts is the same risk. Put your treatments in place and manage that risk. And if I had my glasses on, that would have gone a lot better.
Thanks, Givo.
Thank you.
Maybe that's an important lesson that we all need to remember is take our glasses to work, Michael. Okay. Thanks, Givo. He's joined the panel, as has the Commissioner for Electrical Safety, Greg Skyring. Remember, if you've got a question to ask our panel members, we've got Paul, Donna, Noel, Michael and Greg. There's 3 $100 trade equipment vouchers to give away. I know we've got a number of questions already. All you need to do is type your name and question in the Q&A box to the right of your screen. Let's head to the questions. And the first one is from Alex to Paul. Paul, if you are worried about a mate who seems depressed or not himself, what should you do if you have asked if they are okay and they've just brushed you off? This happens quite a lot.
Yes, Chris, look, that is a big one, and especially on days like today, are you okay day? Mates will often ask mates if they're okay, and of course the mate will invariably turn around and say something smart back. In fact, I was at a mine, and exactly that happened on Are You OK last year, when someone turned around and asked his mate if he was okay, and his mate turned around and told him to get stuffed. So, of course, that's what mates do. They have a bit of fun with that question, but we've got to be a bit clever than that, a bit smarter than that. We've got to delve deeper. So I'd say that's where the help thing comes in. We've got to find ways to get into people's psyche and deepen up the conversation. So if you are with your mate and you're talking about Are You OK Day, just sit there and chat and get deeper. Be vulnerable yourself. Create a trust environment, and you'll find once you start sharing, they start sharing, and you can get into places and get underneath people, and from there you can start taking actions and put plans into place to look after your mates. So yeah.
Thanks. All right, this one's from Veronica. The reported incidence of electrical apprentices receiving an electrical shock has increased over the past 2 years. How can an electrical contractor contribute to reducing this type of incident and ensure an electrical apprentice is safe at work? Who wants this one? Gibbo.
Thanks, Chris.
You don't need your glasses for this either.
No, I can relax now. Really good question, and I think it's really important to understand in the first 6 months of an apprenticeship, they cannot work anywhere near there's a risk of receiving electric shock. And then following that, I think you've really got to have a strong program about mapping their competency against their supervision, against their training. If you don't get those three right, there's that risk. So they've got to learn to test and fault find. It's part of the process, but I think it's got to be something that's developed in stages. So yeah, get their competency tracked, get their supervision, and make sure their supervisors are competent, and then you can track that work program to manage that risk.
All right. Another question here is from Tim to Noel. Noel, did your risk assessment procedure change as well? You gave us, what you guys did and how you managed it, and how does your business handle specific tasks when arc flash risk is known and or unknown?
So, yes, our risk assessment did slightly change. I will say a risk assessment was done, a step was missed in this particular process. Look, we mainly do work on new installations, so the way we reduce our arc flash risk is through our authority to switch. So we just won't allow anyone to switch a supply where we believe there's a risk of arc flash, so them high fault currents. And that's what we do. We've mapped that down into a current rating, and we put a procedure in our business to do it. So it really has reduced that risk for us as a business. And as I said, we potentially did stop a potential issue of that in the last 2 years just by putting that process in place.
Yeah, we've got a number of questions, but we're running out of time. So let's make this the last question of the morning, and we thank you all for joining us and putting in your questions. This is the last one we'll answer here. We will get back to other questions online. What strategies, this comes from Jaden, what strategies or resources can contractors utilise when training their tradespeople to educate, manage, support their apprentices effectively? So let's get it right. We're talking about getting things right. Gibbo?
Yes, Chris. Obviously I've previously spoken about is understanding legislation is really the important step, is what is black and white in legislation, and some of those supporting documents and process and procedures that come off legislation. We have really good codes of practice. There's a really good standard about safe work on low voltage electrical installations. And the critical part of the whole process is apprentices learning the process about risk management. Because you can have a lot of process and procedures, but there's risks that are very much part of that process. So manage those risk management procedures, and then look at your supervisors and how they are going to interact. Really good supervisor at level at each of the levels, and stage that training. So there's competency levels that are achieved by the apprentice, and map those competency levels.
All right.
Thank you.
Time, as I said, is of the wing. Thank you for joining us. I would have liked Greg and Donna to get questions, but you got off scot-free today, so you're lucky in this respect. Paul, if I could just wind up with you, we really appreciate your presentation today, but I think it's important that you just quickly, in 30 seconds I'll give you, tell us, we love the 2-second rule where we take time to think about a response so that we take the emotion out of it and we come up with a fresh approach, but help. It's an important word, action, and an acronym. Can you explain what the acronym is? Just one more time.
Yeah, just one more time. So, yeah, the H stands for look for any signs of hopelessness or helplessness. The E stands for look for any emotional changes. Are people more angry, or they're crying, or different altered behaviours? Look for any loss, any signs of loss of appetite, loss of connection, loss of friends. And the P is for any physical changes. Is their hair changed? Is their skin blemished? Is their dressing unusually? They would all be the big ticket items to me that we have to crack them open and dig deep and try and find out what's going on.
Thanks again, Paul. We appreciate you taking part today. Your presentation, of course, being part of the panel. And to Donna and to Michael, Greg and to Noel, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your input. For you who've watched us at home or at work, thanks. I hope you got a lot out of this. And if you took part with some of those questions, winners of today's $100 trade equipment vouchers will be contacted directly. Now, the good news is there's another 5 $100 trade equipment vouchers up for grabs as part of our Facebook competition that tests your electrical knowledge. So it's a little bit harder, this one. Get in quick as that ends tomorrow. Today's webinar was recorded and will be available to watch and share with your friends or colleagues that may have missed it at eso.qld.gov.au. That's also where you'll find a whole heap of other resources and information on electrical safety. Keep your eye out for an email from us over the next few days to complete a feedback survey about today's event. We really value your feedback, so if you could spare around 2 minutes, we'd really appreciate that. It helps us formulate events in the future. In this email, you'll receive more information on Paul's presentation and also a reminder to complete the Apprentice Safety Culture Survey for your chance to win, well, we've got lots of stuff to win, a $200 trade equipment gift voucher. Check in with your mates, ladies and gentlemen. That's the message from today. Always, always check in with your mates, friends, loved ones. And remember, today is Are You OK Day. And realistically, it's okay not to be okay and to look for help and to offer help. And most importantly, work safe, home safe.